Today we lost a true giant in the theater community. Lighting designer Howell Binkley has passed away. His beautiful art has been seen all over the world on countless live productions. And of course, his magnificent and inspiring design for Hamilton has and will be seen by millions. Steve, Stan, and I send our condolences to his family and all his friends in the theater and dance communities. And although we will greatly miss his humanity, his beautiful art will live on to inspire future generations of lighting designers. Thank you, Howell.
Light Talk. Lumen Brothers. Light Talk. Light Talk. Light Talk. Lumen Brothers. Light Talk.
Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Well, good morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and today on Light Talk, we are talking about truss spots, FOH Mover techniques, infrared cameras, landscape lighting, cardboards,
Well, it goes on and on.
and keeping in shape. All on Light Talk.
And this is David in the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
It's a normal kind of Lumen Brothers. David,
It's a
welcome
normal-
back. Welcome
Oh,
home.
yeah, I'm back from my trip. Boy, that was a trek from Long Beach to Eureka.
Just give us the highlights.
Well, the highlights, my God, there were like so many highlights.
Just two.
Okay,
Two or three.
two. I'll just tell you. Cayucas, Monterey, Aptos, Capitola, Santa Cruz, Bonnie Doon, Half Moon Bay, Pacifica, San Francisco, Bolinas, Point Reyes, Petaluma, Sea Ranch, Gualala, Elk, Mendocino, Fort Bragg, and of course, the beautiful Redwood Forests. And finally, Eureka, which is really nothing to talk about. It was kind of boring. And then I turned around and came home.
Did you say Eureka in Eureka when you were there?
Eureka, yes.
But the trees, the redwoods, that's
It's right outside. It's just past the redwoods, and it was truly amazing. And I highly suggest people go and visit the redwood forests up there, and it is just amazing. But Mendocino, I must tell you, is so beautiful. Driving around the cliffs up there, just north of San Francisco, all the way up, it is just magnificent. But I think I'm moving to Mendocino, to tell you the truth. I think that's where I'm going to retire. It is just gorgeous.
Will you please have an extra bedroom for us?
Yes. I found a 4-bedroom house. I don't need 4 bedrooms. Right
Perfect.
on the cliffs.
Okay. Can I book? I'm booking now.
Maybe in the ocean before we know it, but yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
It was a really great trip. I had to get away. It was like driving me crazy, being in the house all the time.
I know what
But
you
I was
mean.
really careful. I mean, whenever I booked into a hotel, first of all, I made sure it was a clean hotel, a nice hotel. Actually, it was a motel. They weren't hotels, but they're beautiful. And the first thing I do when I walk in is I cover everything with disinfectant. Literally, before even I left my dog to go into there, I would like spray down everything, even the beds. And I brought my own sheets. I brought my own comforter, brought my own pillows. So I was really, really careful. But yeah, it was really quite refreshing and rejuvenating. And I got so many great photos, research photos for lighting and projections and movies and ocean views. Just amazing work that I was able to do while I was on that trip. So anyway, hey, welcome everyone to episode 176. And we start off with Letters to Light Talk Central. Fred Schnodup of Milwaukee, Wisconsin writes, idiots.
Wow, that's a nice way to start the day.
Well, didn't the last guy who sent us a letter start off with morons?
Yes, I think that's true.
So I think Fred is picking up on the idea. Idiots! Listening to last week's episode of Light Talk made me crazy. You have obviously run out of things to talk about when you devote most of your show to Scrapple, recipes, and franchises. And David needs to do his homework when it comes to music history. He incorrectly corrected Stan's observation that Paul McCartney always played a Rickenbacker bass. David said that he initially played a Hofner and did not start playing a Rickenbacker until Magical Mystery Tour. Ha! The fact is that Paul
I was right about something?
Yes, you were actually right about something. The fact is that Paul was given a Rickenbacker by Mr. Rickenbacker during the U.S. tour of 1965.
That I didn't know.
Yes, I didn't either. Paul loved the Ricky because unlike the Hofner, the Ricky stayed in tune all the way up the neck. He alternated using the Ricky and the Hofner for many recording sessions, starting with Rubber Soul. But what any of this relates to lighting is beyond me.
Right.
One suggestion for your show, more Scrapple recipes. Keep up the fake news, Fred.
Apparently, according to some Facebook posters, Scrapple is actually very tasty. So I'm now reconsidering that I must have had a bad batch of Scrapple and I should reopen my palate and my mind that maybe Scrapple could taste good.
I don't know if it's a good idea to put a stomach inside your stomach.
It's no stomach. It's a liver. It's liver.
A liver. Okay. liver. All right. Well, Steve has our first question of the day.
Yeah, and it comes from up north, Oklahoma, and it is Daryl. And Daryl writes, I may have an odd question here, but why is it called a truss spot? Well, Daryl, I'm assuming you're a little Daryl, just getting started. It's called a truss spot because at some point someone decided it would be a good idea to add a follow spot to a truss. So quite often back in the day, you would see a rock and roll tour, and somewhere, usually mid-stage or upstage, there would be a small follow spot mounted onto the truss. And sitting beside it, if it were overhung, was a follow spot operator, or better known as a truss spot operator. Sometimes, as technology improved, they added a chair that would hang underneath the truss. And so you had a below truss mounted follow spot. Lycian was the company that really kind of introduced great follow spots for truss work. The problem, and we're starting to see truss spots kind of disappear. The problem with truss spots is they're a little dangerous because you do have to have a stagehand climb up a wire rope ladder to get into the truss position, truss follow spot position. Once they're up there, they generally don't come down until the show is over. And as we know, stagehands have bladders. And so that can be a very uncomfortable position to be in for a couple-hour show. Stagehands, bless their heart, can be very distracting. Sitting up there, trying to open their bottle of water or pick up the headset they dropped off the truss. Also, it's kind of costly and it's not very effective on every show, simply because generally those truss operators are stagehands that have been picked up, at the local level. They don't really know the show that well. If you go back to the days of Cats had truss spots also, but one of the lead truss spot operator who called all the truss spots was on the downstage truss, and he or she always did all the difficult work, and the other three truss operators were picking up the things that are a little bit more obvious. Truss follow spots, they've been replaced. We're looking at three major systems now: the Follow Me system, the RoboSpot by Roby, and PRG's ground control. So we're starting to move into moving heads. To replace the truss follow spot. But, you still see them on small tours.
Yeah, that's really the way to go nowadays, is to do moving heads up there and using, some sort of remote moving light controller. That's what most of the big rock shows are doing for exactly the reasons that Steve said. It's uncomfortable up there. It's dangerous for both the spot operator and the person underneath the spot operator.
Yeah, but there's something romantic about that too. It's sort of going to be, it's probably, they are going to go away, I agree. And they'll probably think of them in a nostalgic, romantic way. Of, once upon a time, I was a truss spot operator, and let me tell you some stories about that.
Well, the advantage, of going to a moving head up there is you have a full gobo package on board. You can take that light and turn it into a projection device. You have incredible control over it: shutters, zoom, color mixing. With most of these systems, the light can be part of the a wash rig and then flip into follow spot mode and then drop out of follow spot mode and go back into a wash mode or a special mode. So, it's very nice to have that flexibility up there. And also, there's a lot of places you cannot get a truss follow spot in. So let's say you're doing a corporate event and you've got a 14 or 15 foot high ceiling. You really can't underhang a follow spot from that kind of height. You really can't afford to put the truss at a lower level to fit a man or a woman on top of it. So you're going to see the expansion of the truss light into the corporate world now that there's a reliable way to control it.
Emma from the Netherlands writes, what kind of intelligence do you recommend for the FOH hang? I am talking about the cove, the boxes, and the balcony rail. Have you had problems with noise? Well, I assume when you say what kind of intelligence do you recommend for the FOH hang, doesn't mean my intelligence to figure out how to do it. I believe that meant intelligent lighting. And if you listen to the show a lot, you've heard a lot about me talking about having moving lights in front of house, and which I totally believe in, mostly in the box booms. But yeah, you could also have them in the cove as well. And I've had moving lights in the cove before. Balcony rail, not as often, but yes, for certain uses. Now, I would say that it all depends, like everything else, it all depends on the show and what your needs are for that particular show. First of all, just some general things that I usually do is I usually have a minimum of 3 moving lights in each box boom. And that's because if you have those lights in the box boom, you're not going to have to worry about color mixing, 2 lights, through the additive system. You can actually dial in whatever color you want. Usually I have 1 high, 1 mid, and 1 low. But sometimes I'll have 2 high, 1 mid, and 1 low. And sometimes I'll have 2 high and 2 mids. It just depends on what you need. If you don't need a very low shot, like a pitch shin type position, then yeah, I would put that sort of as a mid. And the reason why you'd probably say, well, why would you need like 3 or 4 lights there? Well, you want to have a couple of them to do a wash, to do like a normal box boom wash, color wash going across, and then maybe 1 or 2 as specials. So you can always use that and have that flexibility that you can have this great angled special coming from a high box boom position or even a mid box boom position. It's very, very effective. It gives you some really fun things fun options to play with. And then for front of house, more like a cove position, you can have gobo washes. You could do effects like water effects. You could do a lot of things from that position that can be very, very effective. From the rail, it's usually low enough that you can get underneath the proscenium, so you get pretty high on the walls. And also from the low box boom position, you can get pretty high on the walls if you want to project some sort of a breakup pattern or any pattern that could be in the light up on the walls. So there are a lot of different options you can use. You could also get that, again, from a mid position in the box booms. You can get up high. Again, you're shooting underneath the proscenium. You're shooting underneath the portal, the front portal. So yeah, I mean, they're very, very flexible. You have them. So yes, in the perfect world, if you have the money to do it, absolutely. Another reason why I like putting lights in box booms, because then I don't have to focus the box booms. And focusing box booms usually takes a lot of time. So I just prefer to have moving lights up there and focus them from the desk. As far as noise is concerned, you must find lights that have 0 noise, okay? Very important. I mean, you can't have loud fans. Now, they still are making some pretty decent arc fixtures with very quiet fans. I know Clay Paquet has a few of them, and I know that the BMFLs are great, but still there is a fan noise there. So moving toward LED is a pretty good thing without fans. If you can find a fixture without fans. What I used to use all the time were VL1000s. because they have no fans. But again, the VL1000 is a very limited light, but it had a tungsten source if you're close enough and can use it. The ones with the arc sources were pretty decent too. But again, you want to be able to get a really good color rendering, which was my final point. Whatever light you use in front of house, make sure it's got great color rendering. So be careful with the LED fixtures. Guys, how about you? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I'm in the midst of finishing one renovation and about to start another renovation on the Bob Hope Theater. And I'm tearing our boxes out and going to the cost of having them rebuilt so that I can do exactly what you're suggesting. So I'm going to be a practitioner of the David Jacques 3 moving lights in my box positions in the Proscenium Theater. The Greer Garson Theater, we have a balcony rail. It's a thrust house, kind of like the Guthrie-ish, and kind of a circular stage in there now, round stage sitting on that space. Our balcony rail wraps around 3/4 of the space, and the balcony rail is never more than about 20, 25 feet from the stage. So in there, I have put 15 of the VL 800 event washes. So I use a wash unit in there to do toning and taking care of raccoon eyes and adding color.
One day I have to tell you a story about that balcony rail in the Greer Garson Theater when they first designed it. It was totally useless. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. Thank God they changed it.
Amy in Oregon writes, our stage manager needs to see what is happening on stage during a blackout. If I buy an infrared camera, do I need to add a couple of lights with infrared gel so the camera can see? Short answer, no. And I do love these sciencey questions, so maybe just it would give me an opportunity to sort of pontificate a bit about spectrum again. So Amy, just go back and look at your spectral distribution of visible light and invisible light. So all light in the electromagnetic spectrum is not visible, and infrared is one of those in terms of the nanometers. So infrared, you don't really see it, but boy, it can burn you. So infrared is essentially heat. It's the wavelength that makes you warm. So the cameras are actually picking up heat and create the image. And most living organisms radiate some level of heat, even when it's completely dark. Like your temperature is 198.6 or whatever it might be, and the camera picks that up. Many of the cameras that run full infrared at 0 lux, meaning there is no light at all, will have some infrared LED emitters on the front and push infrared light, invisible light, out into the space. That will also help the objects that might not be radiating much heat, like metal, wood, and so on, to be visible. Now, sometimes you might have to add some infrared floodlights to the space to improve the camera's ability to pick it up. But those sensors don't need a lot of infrared to pick it up. And of course, you're going to get a black and white image. You'll lose color. And the best cameras have a cutoff. So once the light level gets low enough for regular picking up of information, it switches over to the infrared mode. So red light is not really what you're looking for. It's infrared. And I guess if you could turn on an incandescent lamp, and you'll get plenty of infrared, because as you know, they make a lot of heat, but you'll get a lot of visible light as well, which is not exactly
kind of defeats the purpose.
Correct.
Yeah, that's why they have those little lights around the cameras. Next time you're in a theater, take a look at on the balcony rail. That's where usually the IR cameras are, and you'll see this little camera with these little LEDs around them, and that's exactly what Stan is talking about.
Yeah, go down to Best Buy. $40 to $400 and everything in between. And if you get one that is portable, you can take it in Oregon on your Bigfoot hunting trips.
Something? I stopped by the Legend of Bigfoot stand in the Redwood Forest. So apparently Bigfoot is hanging out in the Redwood Forest.
Under an infrared camera. Because he is invisible.
We had a Bigfoot sighting here in Plano. It was probably maybe 10 years ago, and it was one of the best articles I had ever read. And it said a truck driver driving on 75 north to Oklahoma about 4 a.m., and this is the part I like, saw a Nekid albino Bigfoot. Now, I can understand the albino Bigfoot. You know, I'm down with that. But Nekid? Did he expect the Bigfoot to have clothes on?
All right, Steve, say naked.
No, Nekid.
Naked. Naked. I love it. Well, I did not see any naked Bigfoots on my trip. So
any albino Bigfoots?
No albino.
Is it
Bigfoots
Bigfoot or Bigfoots?
Bigfoot.
That's a controversial topic. Or big feet.
He had a peg leg Bigfoot. So, you know.
Team Captain Ahab.
Only one leg.
Do you guys have any infrared cameras on your house?
On my house? Yes, I have infrared cameras in my house.
Oh, how about outside to look at, for
I have
intruders?
one out. I have two outside.
Two outside ones.
Actually, technically I have three outside.
What brand do you have?
They're Nest cameras.
Nest. Okay.
Yeah, Nest.
You are listening to Light Talk, and this week Light Talk is sponsored by
the Lumen Brothers Health and Fitness Club. Are you going crazy trapped in your house with absolutely nothing to do? Are you tired of being a couch potato as you watch reruns of last year's NFL games? Have you looked at yourself in the mirror lately? Just when you thought that there was no way to get more out of shape, there you are looking like someone who frequents monster truck rallies. Oi, that's a lot of matzo balls in there. So, what happened to that new exercise regimen that you promised yourself to start as a New Year's resolution? Oh yeah, that COVID thing happened. Well, no more excuses. It's time to burn away that fat by enrolling in the Lumen Brothers Health and Fitness Club. You may ask, how do I go to a health club when there is a pandemic running wild? Well, in the frugal Lumen Brothers tradition, our very low overhead is passed on to you and to your safety as you only exercise in the comfort of your own home. But we're not talking about sit-ups or Pilates. Our creative exercises not only strengthen your cardiovascular system, they also strengthen your lighting production skills as well. Our expert staff, 3 old lighting designers who have no physical fitness training whatsoever, have devised an exercise regimen that will challenge your stamina and common sense. Pull out your old drafting table from the attic and do the hand drafting marathon. Your hands and fingers will swell to the size of boxing gloves. Or take a simple kitchen table, run around it 50 times, and train for those times when some dolt has kicked out all your AC plugs out of the power strip in front of the production table. At the end of the session, you will be able to replug your lighting desk before your hard drives spin down. And don't forget our hyperventilation breathing exercises, perfect for those times when you panic at the table because nothing is going right. Enroll now and get a free case of our Lumen protein bars. Made from only the highest quality scrapple and franchises, these bars will ensure that your bowels flow smoothly, as most of your body weight will be washed away through natural irrigation. So don't wait another minute. Enroll in the Lumen Brothers Health and Fitness Club today and get ready to hear how great you look when your gigs return. Because as Fernando says, let me tell you something. It's much better to look good than to feel good. And darling, you look marvelous.
And now, back to Light Talk.
So the sound of those crazy ducks in the background tells us that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And for today's Let's Talk About segment, we're going to talk a little bit about landscape lighting. So Stan, do you know anything about landscape lighting?
I do. I'm engaged in that right now. I always used to buy these really cheap pieces of junk, at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever, and they would last about 6 months or a year and they'd fall apart. So what I can tell you is you got to buy the good stuff because it's outside. So you got to buy really high-end quality stuff. And you got to know how to put it in, and you got to get the right wire and direct burial and all that stuff. And it's low voltage is better. And now with LEDs and Bluetooth, the tools out there are amazing, and the costs, for whatever reason, are coming down. So it's also about making a beautiful composition, which you can certainly do. It provides safety for your environment. It's really pleasing, and it increases your property value. So there's a lot worthwhile, and there's a lot of reading. There's a lot of books on this subject. I'm engaging in it with some RGBW Bluetooth-controlled fixtures at the moment. And I'm doing my whole house. And I'm actually going to start offering that as a service through my consultancy, because I think it's a lot of fun to do. And I've even got a former student who is out there in Indiana who was looking for a job right now because the jobs were tough. And he got hired like last week for a firm that does landscape lighting on really beautiful homes. So that part of the lighting world is, it's not shut down. It's actually doing really well.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it last week about how how commercial buildings are not doing very well, but certainly home landscaping and interior lighting, I assume, would be doing pretty damn well since everybody's spending their time at home.
Well,
nowadays.
That's the point, that people are spending more time at home, and I sit on our patio, and I'd like it. We have some beautiful foliage and some trees, and we'd like it to be beautiful. And I found the company just today called Volt, VOLT, which is manufacturer direct of high quality brass cast landscape lighting, and really quite affordable. So I think from a design perspective, to kind of take your theatrical knowledge and start to sort of explore that, if you live in an environment where that market isn't already captured. California, I know, David, where you are, and Texas too, it's really a big thing. It's not such a big thing in my town, so I want to sort of capitalize on that.
So when you say it's not that expensive, what's the price range? If you're going to do your whole house, I mean, not going crazy, but do a really nice design, what would a price range be for the size of your house? What do you have, like a 2,000
I have 2,500.
Okay, good.
No, I have about 2,500 square feet on a modest lot. I think I'm probably going to dump about $2,000 into it.
Oh, that's not bad.
2,500, maybe 3,000 at the most. And I think I'll be able to do the front, the back, do some really nice. Right now I've got 4 RGB Bluetooth guys outside, which I love because I can sit there with my phone and write the cue and balance everything and choose the color temp and record the cues. But I can't really set it yet to turn off at 11. I'd have to get a photo cell. But I love that. I wish everything was Bluetooth enabled, but other stuff is not. But yeah, I'm looking at the Volt line. I'm looking at the Cast Source line. All the big architectural lighting companies, many of them have landscape lighting divisions, and a lot of it's moving to LED. So yeah, I think it was for a while a rich person's thing, but I think now it's there's a lot of competition in that space, and for the reasons we already mentioned, it's an area to sort of expand your repertoire.
But could you even go less expensive? Like if you go down to Home Depot, you get these landscape kits.
Won't last.
It won't last.
I'm calling Bumpkus on this.
Bumpkus. He calls Bumpkus.
You got these 2 Yankees spending money. Buddy, this is what you do.
Tiki torches. Steve's going to recommend tiki torches.
You go down to the convenience store, 7-Eleven as it were, get yourself a 6-pack of Shiner, but get it in the can. Get the can. So now you can just take a can opener and just take the top of that can off, pour the beer in a quart jar, take that can outside, put yourself a damn flashlight in there.
There you go.
I have to tell you, I am a proud sponsor of Home Depot, and I love their solar-powered stuff. So give me a $10 fixture. I don't care if it dies in a year because there'll be a better fixture out next year that's even more fun to work with.
Well, I tell you what, I've changed so many of them over the years. So the fact that the Cast Source stuff is a 10-year warranty, and the stuff from Volt is a lifetime warranty. It's just swap them out when they're going to replace them for me. But yeah, you could do the homemade style, like. That's
$7.95 Home Depot, all you want. But the thing you need to think about though, landscape lighting isn't any different from theatrical lighting. You're still planning the very same thing. You now have a plot of land, a house, some trees in it. So you're having to decide what objects you want to light. You're having to decide where you want to put focus, what you want to push into the background. I mean, the lighting techniques are the same thing. You're maybe silhouetting something. So we silhouette things on stage all the time. Maybe we cross-light something. Maybe we shoot light up a textured piece of scenery to see the brick pattern or the wood pattern in it. The same techniques you have in dance, maybe cross-lighting. Something that I hadn't thought of that, again, Al down at Home Depot said, you might want to think about this. And I hadn't thought of it. He said, why don't you put a light, really high up in one of your oak trees?
Yes.
And have that coming down on your patio so it simulates moonlight.
Yeah.
So you have a sense of moonlight happening on
Wow,
your
this
patio.
guy's a lighting designer. I'm
Well,
very impressed.
He's talking the deal. That's right.
Well, I mean, you have cross lighting, up lighting, you have
Yep.
diffuse lighting, or
It's all the
something
same.
that is a spot. So it really is the same thing. You're just
It is.
working with a different piece of equipment.
Yep.
And
Totally
you,
agree.
you don't need no stinking color mixing out there, buddy. Don't do that. Just plain just white light.
There's where I disagree. So let's give an example. So on my house, there's not a lot of really great features to light on the front. So I'm struggling with that, right? So there's a couple of columns for our but they're very plain. They're not really, architectural columns, but they're white, right? And then there's the greenery, and then there's the crepe myrtle, which is a very common sort of tree here with beautiful blooms. So when I balance the color temperature on the white and get the levels just right, they look good. If I just turn everything on to full, or it looks like crap, frankly. So as a light designer, I want to do all the things that Steve's talking about in terms of distribution and focus and the effects, but I also want to balance the composition because all the materials are not the same. The tree is brown, the columns are white. So I want to be able to get that just right. And then I want to be able to have some dynamics. And when it comes to the holidays, when Halloween comes, I want to do a little something for the kids. When Christmas comes, I want to do a little something for the holidays. And rather than have to go get up on a ladder and risk falling down, I can just open up my phone and bring up the Christmas queue. So why not?
I got a cheap $27 Chinese laser that I stick in the front of my house for Christmas. And it just throws a laser pattern on my
all over
house.
the front. Yeah, those are
all
nice.
over the front. And it's
it's about layers. And it's about different tools, right? I mean, it's a design.
And here's my point. If someone steals it, I don't care. My question, if you start putting expensive fixtures outside, what happens when somebody comes by and says, maybe I like that for my house? And they pull it out of the ground.
Well, you have a good point there, David. So with the higher quality fixtures, which is what I'm using, the stake that goes into the ground, which I put in last weekend with a rubber mallet, goes about 14 inches down, and you couldn't pull that up so easy. And then the fixture head from the high quality fixture, not the Home Depot variety, goes in with an Allen key and it's locked in. So somebody would have to and plus the wiring as well. And if you ever try to take off a waterproof wire nut, it leaves a lot of slime on your fingers. So it would take a lot of effort. That's all
well and good until those South Georgia, North Florida rednecks in their pickup trucks come by and start shotgunning your fixtures in the yard.
What? They're going to shotgun them?
Well, there's cast brass. You're going to have to be a pretty good shot to get through that.
But surely these high-end fixtures, they make a solar-powered fixture so you don't have to deal with all this wiring.
Yeah, the wiring. Listen, I bought my house with landscape lighting back in 2001, and it still doesn't work.
Right. Well, then you'll have
20 years later.
Well, you'll have to hire me, and you'll have to pay the right.
Well, they're all wired. That's the problem.
Well, you know what? The first landscape lighting job I ever did here in Gainesville was for, let's say, one of the highest paid people at the university, and we did this project, and we recommended our contractor. And this person said, no, I want to use my electrician. And we said, well, does your electrician have any experience doing landscape? It doesn't matter. I trust them. So they did. It was a pretty extensive design. And this is a long time ago, way before LEDs. Everything was incandescent tungstens. And after about a month, the client's calling me going, things aren't working. What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. So we come over there. and where's the electrician's gone, and we go into the central point where all the wires came together for the transformers and the photocells, and everything is capped off with the same wire nut you would use indoors, wrapped with a little plastic electrical tape and thrown in the ground. That there is no way this stuff was going to last. So there are techniques, and you have to research the right kinds of connection systems and so on. So there's the right way to do it, and then there's the spit and bubble gum way to do it. Just like anything else, theater too. You got professionals, you got professional methods, and you got not
guys like us.
Right.
Okay. Well, Steve has our last question of the day.
Russell in North Carolina writes, the Emmy just sent an email saying she would need cardboards for the load-in this fall. What are cardboards? Well, probably what she's talking about is hanging boards. Probably what she wants to do is take the light plot and not carry a big piece of paper around with her everywhere, but to take that light plot and cut it up into sections, apply that onto some type of stiff board or stiff paper that she can give the electrician, so she can say, here is your cardboard for electric 1. And that has only the information on electric 1 on it. Here's your cardboard for FOH 1. So it's an easy way for her to get the information out, and people aren't dragging big pieces of paper everywhere.
Right. Also, on the back of those cardboards, we usually put an inventory list of what's used for that position. So the electricians can say, oh, I need 5 19 degrees, I need 3 36 degrees, I need 12 twofers, I need, all that is on the back. And usually a gel list too, and usually a gobo list, so that the electrician can be back in the shop gathering all that equipment and just take it right out on stage and say, okay, all the equipment's here, let's go.
I have a question about that for you guys. We used to call them hanging cards when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But there are some softwares that actually make hanging tapes, like from the plot. They'll actually, and then there was like tape printers, like sort of like the right width. I know that one software that I use has that. Does Vectorworks have that capability too? I know that WYSIWYG does. I've never used it, but I don't know if the other softwares that are out there have the hanging tape capability built into the software.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of electricians have that. They bring out the tape that's already been pre-printed.
Yeah,
and it comes out, which is nice. But it's also nice to have it so you can put it in your back pocket, the cardboard. So it's usually there's a head electrician checking on things, for that position, and they'll have that cardboard. They'll just look and say, and double check it.
Right. Well, I think you could just paste that to cardboard. What I used to do in the old days was we take the whole plot, little spray adhesive, put it on a big piece of cardboard, and then get the X-Acto knife and cut up the cards and hand them out.
Yeah. The problem is you got to make sure that it's at a large enough scale that you're not really hard to see.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Russell, you'll see this on tour occasionally, on a theatrical tour. They'll take a piece of jute, right? The 3-inch stuff at the top of a drop. So they'll take the jute, they'll lay that out to the length of the batten, and on the jute there'll be a center line and quarter lines, and then information about every light. So that makes it very fast for the stagehands to hang it. If you have someone just putting the jute up and then dropping the lights off, stagehands can pick it up and go 6-inch Fresnel, this is where I hang it. Yeah. So that'll cut a tremendous amount of time off of your load-ins.
Where would you hang a 6-inch Fresnel nowadays?
I don't know.
on my front
in the
lawn.
Dumpster. That's where I would put it. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, Live Design Online, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you decide to litigate, the law firm of Flecht, Flocked, Flare, and Glare, and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and from deep in the heart of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week where we talk about even more happenings in our crazy industry.
All of that and a new sponsor
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Sayonara.